next missionary skill is exploring alternative paths. Now, here's why this is important. Whenever there's a problem to be solved, a lot of times we fall back on that tried and true approach to solving the problem, and then we're determined to make that problem, make that solution work. But God's people are supposed to be much more creative than that. He made us different so that as we go out in community, we work together to be creative in solving the problems that we face. One problem that we have as we try to make disciples is overcoming barriers. And so often we fall back on those tried and true methods that we have always trusted. Usually when we talk about ministry, it brings to mind a person whose formal job it is to be a minister. You can think of a pastor or a campus ministry leader. You can think of a director of a program, a missionary, humanitarian worker. These are certainly ministers of the gospel, and we are appreciative for them. But here's the thing, that can't be our only way to engage people with the gospel. We can't have everyone require a title and a position, especially a paid position, in order to do this well. We really need all of God's people, the entirety of the church, engaged in his mission. And there's just not enough resources to pay us all to have a formal position. So what does that look like? What it means is when we decide we're going to be in ministry to a certain place, a certain campus, a certain workplace environment, a certain community, we can't immediately assume, well, my job is then to get a pastor job or an official ministry job to work among those people. We have to be creative. We have to explore not just the traditional path, but also alternative paths. So let's say you want to engage in collegiate ministry on campus. A lot of times the way we naturally think is we assume, well, if I'm going to be a campus minister, then I have to go get a formal job. So I go to a church and find a church that will bring me on as a staff member or an official minister, and then that's my approach. And then, of course, with that, we usually see people build then a location. So we get a space on campus, if that's a possibility, or nearby, just off campus. And we open up a space and consider that to be the domain or the center of our ministry. Well, the problem is that's one approach. That's a pathway to ministry that we need. And we need lots of those people. So if that's a possibility, we should take it. And yet, it's not always the best approach. In fact, sometimes having an official title or official role at a church can get in the way of us engaging people and making disciples on a campus. So we need to start to think about what are some alternative ways to engage students, in this case, a campus ministry. How can we be campus ministers without an official title, role, or position? Well, here's what that might look like. And I want to be clear, I'm not prescribing anything. These are just some ideas that can maybe jog your creativity and get you thinking outside the ministry box. No matter how old you are, if you're a lifelong learner, it makes sense that you would consider yourself to be a student. And yet, if you go to a college campus and say, hey, I'm a little bit older than you, I'm not in college anymore, but I'm a lifelong learner, that doesn't necessarily connect you with students. But if you were to enroll in classes, pursue a second degree, another degree, maybe go back and study something you've always wanted to study, just by matriculating into and registering on campus, you become a student in a way that your general posture can't provide. You have a student ID card, you become a student, and you're going through life in the same way a student does, engaged in study and extracurricular activities. And I know for some of you, you're thinking, that's out of reach. I would never consider that. But think about the results. If you become a student, you're able to identify with students in a way you'll never otherwise be able to identify with them. And trying to strike up a conversation as a non-student with students can be dicey. I mean, people can respond, it can feel threatening to have some outsider come in and try to engage me in conversation. But another student studying at the table next door to me, that makes a lot of sense, and we can have some camaraderie there. So I want to encourage you, consider going back to school. Now, you might not ever have wanted to go back to school, but that could be the very thing that could get you connected to students on campus. Another opportunity, another alternative path to collegiate ministry for you might be taking a job on campus. Now, I know the thought of being, working in the cafeteria, you might think, well, that's actually not going to help me connect. And that's true. There's a lot of behind the scenes kinds of roles that happen on a collegiate campus that could really prevent you from being spending time with students. That said, sometimes just your presence, serving in janitorial staff, serving in security, working on campus, just your presence there, having a reason to be there can make all the difference to how students will accept you and your influence. Another thought, though, could be maybe some of you need to teach. If you're qualified and gifted and able, you might want to take up an adjunct teaching position. Campuses across the country are hiring for these sorts of teaching assistant jobs, also teaching online courses. So there are opportunities that would help you connect. As a member of the faculty, you are part of the community in a way that you're not if you're a church member or a church minister. So some of these things just require some creativity. And they also require a flexibility, a willingness to let go of your comforts. Your identity is in your ministry, your sentness, not in the job that you take. Nothing is beneath you, and nothing is above you if you can follow alternative paths, God's Holy Spirit leading you to engage people, and recognizing that there are lots of creative ways to overcome the barriers that we face in making disciples of all people.